welcome to the Women in Business World Summit. Well, what a great day today to celebrate International Women's Day. We're very, very excited to have a very special individual with us. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Annie Lim, and I'm the CEO and founder of Women in Business World Summit. It's been such a great journey the last few weeks, and like I said, I am just so thrilled to have this special individual with us. I had the opportunity to meet with her, I think, about almost a month ago.
Yep.
And yeah, about a month ago. And, I just, we just had an instant connection and just in at all at the work that she's been doing. And, I'm going to let her kind of share with you her work. Let me just briefly also introduce her. Now, her name is Jyoti. Now, Jyoti is an international renowned spiritual advisor with a PhD in transpersonal psychology, including 2.5 years of postgraduate study at the C.G. Jung Institute in Zurich, Switzerland. She is one of the founders of Kayumari, a spiritual healing community located in Sierra foothills of California, the North Bay of San Francisco, New York, Prague, and a home in Brazilian Amazon. She is the spiritual director of the Center for Sacred Studies, a 501c3 dedicated to sustaining ways of life based on collaboration and reciprocity with the earth and all her beings. She has devoted her life to bringing unity to the planet by facilitating the development of alliances between individuals who are the guardians of the indigenous culture and traditional medicine ways. Through this work, collaborative relationship with organizations that are focused on economic, social, and environmental solutions has developed, creatively addressing the global challenges of our time. So once again, welcome, Jyoti.
Thank you for having me.
So good to be with you. Like I said in the earlier, it's just your presence. I'm always there's this sense of comfort, and again the generosity. So again, thank you. So today, our topic is about our lives as women through the eyes of a grandmother. So before we go ahead and start our interview or discussion today, I would love for you to probably share a little bit about yourself and yes, how it has been for you the last.
Well, I sat with when you asked me to talk a little bit this morning with you and I went to see who all the speakers were that were joining you in the summit, and I was quite amazed and humbled that you had invited me to sit amongst so many beautiful, amazing people that are doing inspiring works around the globe. And I sat down and I just wanted to reflect on these next 15 minutes, this kind of what we could call a little bit of what I would say the honey on the plate moment, when I sit and look at my life and how it has been crafted that brings me here to speak and share with everyone today. And I'll be soon 66 years old. So let me introduce myself that way. And I have the delicious moment in my life where I get to enjoy grandchildren, which I had no idea was going to be an offering that was so full of wonder, and not without its challenges for sure, because we've had some health issues with one of my youngest granddaughter. But she, in that process, is teaching us some remarkable things as well. So teaching happens in every stage of the game. I sat back and I reflected, where were things, when I was a girl growing up in the South. Things were very, very, very different back then. I was a girl that lived over in Europe right after the war finished. I remember what it felt like then, and I remember some of the pain, all of the pain that was still very palatable to me as a young girl. I remember being in college when the first man stepped on the moon. Even if I were to back up a little bit, I would remember when TVs came into our homes, which was a big, big change that changed all of us. But when the man's foot first went on that moon, something really started to shift differently. And then as I would become a young mother with young children, it was then only that women's rights and the thought of woman in the marketplace and more an individual expression of the power that lives in women was starting to come forward through amazing people like Gloria Steinem and others like her that heralded such a moment for all of us and really shook us all awake because we were asleep. It changed my life. I had no idea that it would change it in the ways that it did. I later went on to become one of the first women to run a halfway house for juvenile delinquent boys in Texas. That was a challenge to me to see if I could stand the fire of it all. I would go on to work with street children in Texas for over 13 years. So that crafted my life in a lot of ways. And it's actually what woke me up because I discovered those children were the mystics of this country. They were the ones that knew how to walk in very challenging and life-threatening situations in this country and survive it through something that guided them from deep in their interiors. And I started to question what was that kept them so animated during a time when many would have given up and fallen down from the challenge that was sitting upon them at such early ages. So that kind of started to push me, and it actually pushed me into the Jung Institute, where I began to study about the inner psyche and what that amazing energy and intelligence brings and manifests in our lives. And then I began to really wake myself up, as the Jungians would say, and to individuate so that I could understand my own authenticity that lived inside. And it became part of a driving engine in me to be someone that walked on the earth more consciously, because I realized one day that really there's not bad and good, there's just unconscious people and conscious people. And unconscious people harm and hurt, and conscious people wake things up and they start to spread their goodness inside. Each and every one of us does sit goodness. So that brought me to a different place about what does it mean to be a woman. You know, I went through a period of my life where I had to understand and study abuse as a woman, both in my private life as a young married woman, and then later in my business world where things were not handled in very ethical ways, and women certainly weren't making very much, not at all what the men were making. I would say that the changes that have passed by us now and where I'm standing now as a 66-year-old grandmother is that I'm so happy to see that at this point, at least, women can go to school and of their choosing. They can participate in becoming doctors and lawyers, or in whatever profession that their hearts are calling them towards. They're not kept in a place that's less than who they are. And so that brought me to wake in this whole waking process into looking at my own spiritual life, because I believe that when you connect with that which brought you, then your full authenticity is brought forward and it's presented in the world, and it can craft something in this world that our egos could not yet imagine. So, you know, when I was a young girl and we were just starting to get together in groups, I lived in the South, and I had some of my friends that were beaten because they wanted to meet in circles of women, and one of them was actually murdered. So it took a lot of courage in those early days to come together as women. In fact, we got very creative. That's part of why many of us started having Tupperware parties, so we could come together to get things for the kitchen, which was okay. But in that process, we could begin to share as women, and we could begin to craft something different for ourselves and break out of this box that defined us in such limited ways. And in that process, it defines everybody around us, because women are the life makers of this planet. And we are entering a period of time now where the life makers are going to be walking with men that are there ready to protect life rather than defend something for it. That's a different posture for the masculine. So we're all going through a big change. And I have two beautiful sons in their 40s. So I'm not here to bash men. I don't think that's what we're about. I think it's recognizing that the feminine lives in every single one of us, and that it's time for her to awaken on this feminine planet, so that we can sustain life here. Because if we don't wake up and do something with the course that we have now directed ourselves towards, it's going to lead to our destruction. And that's a concern of mine as a grandma. I want my grandchildren to enjoy clean water, clean air, and feel safe in their homes. And right now, that's in motion all over the planet. There's a lot of amazing people that are waking up, and that are waking more people up, just like yourself, Annie. So I'm so appreciative that you're putting on this kind of initiative, and that you're bringing more of us together to just share a little bit about each of the paths. Because when we stop and look back at all the different paths that are going to give voice here in your summit, I believe you're going to see a pattern of something revealed that will be quite amazing, because you'll be able to see a larger pattern, a global pattern of what the feminine is doing in this moment on the planet. So I hope that kind of answers that first question that you gave to me.
Yes, thank you, Jyoti. And just listening to what you have gone through and the women before that, and paving the way for those of us today. Wow. And so I'm grateful and appreciative. And thank you for the courage too. It took a lot of courage to take those steps. And I truly believe it's time. It's an opportunity for us to learn from the past and make our corrections now. And I love what you said about, it's time that the feminine energy lives. And I think that's what's behind the summit too. The goal is to bring that message out. And I spoke at one of the interview I had recently, and I said that, we're focusing on women because I think the previous conversation has been so much about men that we actually excluded women. And our goal right now is to include women. So it's not about excluding men. I think that's what I want even the attendees to hear. Our goal is to include
Absolutely.
women. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, bring me into the next part of the story, if it's okay for me to jump there,
yeah,
because there's a lot of prophecy around the planet, and a lot of spiritual teachings around the planet about this time that we're in. And in December 21st of 2012, there was prophecy that was enacted and fully enlivened or empowered through the Mayan teachings. And they said that we literally closed an era, because there's been a lot of talk on the planet about the end of the world. And most of the ones that I walk with will say it's not the end of the world, it's the end of time as we know it. And we're entering into a new time. And this new era is empowered by the feminine principle. We have to come back to the feminine principle. We started there in our original days, and we made a huge circle out in order to do the developments and to do the learning that we've done in our walk as human beings here on this planet. But now we're coming back to a time of returning to those original points of reference. And that has to do with the feminine. And so the men were the ones that made the contributions during some of those ceremonies to say to the women that they were sorry for some of this history that had unfolded, that some of the masculine energies on the planet had gone to sleep, and in that sleeping moment they became unconscious, and they did those harmful acts I was talking about originally. But now they're waking back up again, and they're realizing that now they are the protectors of the life makers of this planet, and they want to acknowledge those life makers as they step into this amazing cycle of birth that we are on this planet. Amazing moment of possibility that is available to every single human being here. In fact, one of my elders that I've traveled with for a lot of years, she has teachings within the Yupi people that talk about a time when, what we've been in our development on the planet is a moment of learning about our animal side of our nature, how to survive. But now we're moving into the hearts of ourselves, and we're moving into the beingness of ourselves. So we're just starting to open the door to the new era about being human beings. And what does that really mean? One of my friends early on as I was growing said, part of our lives were human becomings, then we become human doings, and then finally we sit down to become human beings. And so when you get into the feminine principle of life, you start to realize that the feminine is something that like catches the dream and holds the dream, and the masculine is what gives it form and puts it out in the world. So you need both natures married in a sacred dance with one another in order to open the possibilities of goodness that reside on this planet, that are part of her full being, Mother Earth's full being. And so it's a time of the feminine. And many, many leaders around the world that I have sat with and I have had the privilege to walk with and learn from, that I've sat at their feet so that I could learn more about things that would help wake me up to my own full potential. I'm reflecting back. I was thinking about this as I was getting ready for our dialogue this morning, and I was reflecting back to the first time when this big flurry ran around the globe when because His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I believe it was in January the 25th, I looked up the date, 2010, and he was actually in a Vancouver Peace Summit where he made a remark that Western women were coming to rescue the world. And he talked about how women have they have the seed of compassion that lives in him. In fact, when I went with an International Council of Grandmothers to sit with His Holiness in Dharamsala, he was talking about this very thing. He said his teacher, his most primary teacher, was his mother, because she taught him about compassion. And that right now on the planet, what we really needed was the medicine of compassion. In fact, what he was helping to hold in a full awareness with his people as they were dealing with this horrible challenge of being driven out of their country, their beautiful country of Tibet, by the Chinese. He was really saying that we can address this out of our anger and our rage. We can stay wounded by it and victimized by it, or we can meet it with our compassion. And this is truly the lesson that this creation has given us, is that we must meet this with compassion. And for me, that was an amazing teaching, because when you look around the planet and everywhere you go, there are horrendous things that have happened in our histories, both personally. We've walked into relationships or situations have grabbed us by life where we've been hurt or victimized in some way, or something has come out of time and moved across a culture and stolen some of the essence of who it was, or tried to steal. I wouldn't say it stole it. I would say it tried to steal. But all these things have happened to all of us. And we can meet that with anger and rage and resentment. We can become bitter in the way that we walk on the planet. Or we can follow this amazing example of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people and respond to this challenge life gives us, so it will mold us and craft us in a centered, more strengthened space of being human, and bringing our own humanity into play through the doorway of compassion. The Dalai Lama went on to say in 2013, that he felt so strongly about this need for the presence of the feminine to wake up in all of us, that because of where it was, and as soon as it really fully enlivened and empowered itself, he wasn't so sure that the next Dalai Lama that would come into incarnation would not be a woman. So that caused another big ripple that went around the planet. But so this has been my experience. I from that time when I was a little bitty girl and I didn't know any better and was running in the around on the earth, finding my Mother Earth in the arms of trees and having communion with with my spiritual presence in a way that was so natural, because it is natural to us to live like that in ourselves. And if you watch children, they all do. They're in the awe of creation, they're in the wonder of it, and they can touch it and dialogue with it. And so as you go through life, and things changed, and around us everything changed. My grandmother lived until she was in her in the early 90s, and when she was a young girl, there were covered wagons, and the West was that way. And so she lived for a period of time that moved from that very primitive kind of way of, I wouldn't say primitive necessarily, but not, what would you, if I, I get stuck with this, because some would want to say, well, we live more civilized now, but I don't think we do. I think we actually think we do, and that's the problem that we're living out today, is that we've got to come back and appreciate some of those ways of life that were held for so long on this planet by our original people, and that where there was balance, and there was connection with nature, and there was direction given to us by nature, and it was through those dialogues that life perpetuated and sustained itself. And so in my quest right now, which I'm going to speak about more when we have a little bit longer in a few weeks, my quest right now, it's really coming back to those original times, and my study has been to look at those ways of life that bring a balance inside of ourselves, and therefore it comes outside of ourselves. It brings an awareness and a dialogue with nature that begins to respect the intelligence of nature and give it some lead in this. I truly believe that when we stop raping the earth and raping her resources, taking her blood sources and all of these kinds of things, that we will when we start to live with her in a more harmonious and compassionate and respectful way, that we will find that that's how women and mothers on this planet will be treated as well. And then we will really see what we've accomplished, and we'll come back to something that will be a treasure for my grandchildren to hold. So I hope that this has answered or touched on some of the things, Annie, you wanted me to touch on this morning.
Yes, thank you so much, Jyoti. Just listening to you and, just bringing me back to my heart and your message, what you shared, the feminine, it's about holding the vision, and the feminine is about love and compassion. And I think that's a great message for us to share this year for the International Women's Day, is to not just invite women, but men, everyone, as human, like you said, we're back to being human, as being human and working together as one, because we all live on one planet. And I love what Buckminster Fuller said. We're on spaceship Earth. Basically, we're on one spaceship, right? It's floating in space, but we're
That's
all
right.
on the same place.
That's what we have to remember, because if
Yeah.
we don't, we're going to be caught in these wars of division. Well, a friend of mine said the other day, the most evil thing living on the planet right now is the thought of separation, of separateness, of creating separateness between us, when there's really, that's against the nature, because we're interconnected, and there's an interrelationship that I am hoping to, that my work has been about recultivating, because I believe it is part of the remedy of this time we're living in, and we're running out of time. We don't have the luxury any longer of just putting it off till the next day. The severity, if you just watch the news and what's unfolding right now, even on the planet, the severity of reactions to our unconscious behaviors are getting more severe. And I'm not worried about the earth. I'm more concerned that people start to understand that we are the threatened species, because the earth, she's been through a lot of changes. There were dinosaurs and an era of dinosaurs on her at one point there. So she's gone through these life changes on her body many times, and as the Hopis would say, we're entering the fifth world, and the fifth world is moving us out of the fourth world where we studied separation and into the fifth world where we are coming back to unity amongst all people. And that's when our heads and our hearts come back together again, and our heart leads the way. Uh, and that's when we become more human.
Thank you. And I know, and you mentioned too, just looking back at the indigenous way, right? And I know you formed the 13 Grandmothers Council, which where I was so at awe when I heard about it. How can we learn from them and now come back to, because as you mentioned, we think we're civil, but every day I sit and so I don't watch TV a lot, but if I do and I look at what's happening, and I go, at this day and age, we have all the technology and all the know-how, yet we are in war. So there's all these things still happening. It's time to go back and just learn from those who have done it and know how to balance. Uh,
Right. Well, our First Nation peoples, they have a sacred technology also, and it's been taught to them by the earth. So if we take our more mental organized technology and bring an understanding so that it walks in a cooperative way with our sacred technology of the earth, then we will get different results. That's when the balance of things will come back. If not, our head's going to run off with us, and we're going to jump right off a cliff into destructive patterns, which we are already seeing the results of. So, I think it's a moment where we have to step back and we have to re-examine where we are, and 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 take heed. Pay attention. I think that's my the beautiful council of the 13 indigenous grandmothers was a vision that came, and it was presented by the Divine Mother to me, and it put me on a march that took me around the world to witness the most amazing teachings as the earth herself, through these beautiful women of prayer, shook itself awake and awakened many grandmothers. There are grandmother circles now in over 70 countries around the world where grandmothers are gathering people together in circles in their local communities, and they're sitting down with all the ages of life, and they're sharing stories, and they're bringing them back to a localized understanding of their culture, and coming back to the roots, to the root consciousness that we all have inside of us. We all have a root that we came out of. And so it's a time to really come back to the understanding of what is that root, how were we planted, and when you run up your own tree of life, then how did it express itself, and where is it now in that expression? Let's not get caught in an identity of something that's flowing to its next destination, because our life here is a flow. It needs to be a flow, and it flows from one expression of ourselves into the next. Life shows us that by we come in as infants, and then we become young people, young children, and then we become young adults, and then we become adults, and then we become elders, and then we become, grandmothers and grandfathers. And my First Nation people taught me a lot in saying that you're really not an adult till you're 51 years old. That's when you've really reached a place where your consciousness is ready to find out what the soul came here to do. And when you get to be 60, that's when the full expression of it happens. That's a very different understanding than our Western ideology and our dominant culture would teach us. So, it's time to come back to the nature of ourselves and understand the potential each and every one of us has, male, female, young, old, and all colors of our human beingness need to be expressed together in a unified form in order for us to find the solution to opening the door and moving through it in that boat of compassion you were talking about, Annie.
well, thank you so much, Jyoti, for your time. I really appreciate it. I can go on and on with the conversation with you. I love connecting with you. It gets me back to my heart so much. And I just want to thank you again for your time with us today, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. I, always look forward to connecting with you and learn from you. And, just listening to what you said, the last piece about flowing from one expression to the other. And it gives me the knowing that the Women in Business World Summit is just the beginning of what I, trust the universe intend to create through my expression. And as mentioned, my playground is the business playground, and my goal is to
Right.
bring heart and soul back to business, and
Absolutely.
creating world peace through business. So once
Well,
again, thank you
and
so
when you do,
much.
when we do that in the business world, uh, we will see a different reality arriving in the business world, and that will be one that is off of the out of the female principle will come collaboration and cooperation rather than competition and control. So that's the lens we've got to look through and see where are we really, and how do we want to vote? Do we want to flip the switch into this new paradigm where we can flourish and sustain life on this planet? Or do we want to choose a course of action that will end life on this planet as we know it? That's really where we're at. And business, I believe, especially business out of the West, is going to lead that decision. So what is our legacy going to be? You know.
Hmm.
But we're going to talk more about it. I'm looking forward to talking with you more about that, Annie, when we look at what does it mean to be a business collaboration or corporation or whatever title we want to give to that collective that is
Yes.
moving around on the planet right now and separating itself from its people. So I think women, as the Dalai Lama said, are going to rescue things because it's our Western corporations that will really have the power to do this a different way and make a difference. And women are stepping up inside of those corporations now in remarkable ways. And they've got insight and strength, and they have character that is based on looking at all the people and connecting to the people so that it's in service to life instead of trying to control it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much for that. I think one the last thing that I just want to add is, and to those who are listening into men and women, women in particular, I find, sometimes we get overcome by our fear. My invitation is sometimes we don't have to figure everything out. It's just trusting and flowing and creating it.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the secret, you see, because that's an old Western ideology that you can figure it out, make a plan. With the feminine, she's going to require that you stay in the present moment and follow her plan, which means that you'll only know what you need to know right now. And if you stay fully in that moment, then the quality of life dramatically changes. When we run ahead of ourselves, we get caught in fear. And when we look behind ourselves, we get caught in regret. So in the moment is the present. It is a present of time that's been given to us. It's not easy to stay in the moment. Our egos and our minds want to run ahead of us, but staying in the moment is the secret to some of this. But I know I'm not saying anything that many people that are listening to this don't already know. Maybe I'm just giving a voice for validation for it. The how-to will come when we do what Annie is leading us to do, which is to collectively share and talk like this so that we can see what is that present moment, what is the possibility of the present moment we have our hands on right now. And that will show us where to go next.
Yes. Thank you so much. I feel like the message for me. So once again, I know I really appreciate your time. And just for those who are listening, Jyoti will be back with us on the full summit. She will be on March 28th. So just right before my session to kind of close the full summit session too. So once again, Jyoti, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. I am so honored and blessed to have you and know you as to have you as a supporter and to know you. And I look forward to continue building our relationship. Is there anything else you want to
I'm
say to those who are listening today before we end?
I just want to say I take my hat off to you, Annie, for following this present moment and the possibilities it's opened up for so many of us. So thank you, and I'll look forward to talking to everyone else on the 28th. I'll be one day into my 66 year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for listening, and also to um, information to, if you want to connect with Jyoti, you can go to her website. It's centerforsacredstudies.org. Okay? Okay. And goodbye, everyone. What a great session just now with Jyoti. And I, want to take this opportunity today to just wish all of you who are listening in Happy International Women's Day. What a great day that has been carved out for us to celebrate women. So for those who are listening, my invitation for you, men or women, to come and together and embrace who we are. As Jyoti had mentioned, this is a time for us to come back to embrace humanity, embrace about being human. And to me, being human, it's all about the heart. It's all about love. And like she said, it's about compassion. So I would love to invite you, all of you who are listening in, especially women, and I know how much, we're so critical about ourselves, that to take today to love you. And of course, not leaving out the men, I want you to take this opportunity to bring in your feminine energy and to love yourself. In the midst of, going through the day, start thinking about how could you love yourself, how could you give time to yourself, and how do you be more compassionate to yourself. And while you're doing that, be compassionate for those who are around you, your family, your kids, your friends, your business partners, those that you cross paths with, and take this on and take this continuously into your life. Once again, change starts from each and every one of us. I look forward to continue to build this movement. I believe that the summit is just the beginning of a great movement, which is creating world peace through business. And with all your support, we can do it. As Jyoti mentioned, it's about oneness. So we're all living on the same planet. Let's, hold hands and move forward together. And I look forward to be in touch and connect with you. My love to you today. And thank you once again for your support. Have a great, great day. Goodbye.